So law number one simply says, never outshine the master. Always make those above you feel comfortably superior. In your desire to please or impress them, do not go too far in displaying your talents, or you might accomplish the opposite. Inspire fear and insecurity. Make your masters appear more brilliant than they are, and you will attain the height of power. So that's law number one. So this is a clip from one of my very first videos when I just started this channel about a year ago. And I had to revisit it in a bit to be able to expound on the key message contained in the video. So basically what happened was, a couple of days back, I was having a conversation with someone. And this person's story just kind of highlighted the relevance of the guiding principle or the first law of Robert Greene's book, The 48 Laws of Power, which is basically not to outshine the master. Do not outshine the master. And I found his story quite fascinating that I decided to bring right here and share with you all. So basically he explained to me how he had immigrated from a broken system about some 20 years ago into a much wealthy country as a student. And because he was a student, of course, there were many jobs he couldn't do legally. So he was basically having a hard time until someone introduced him to this lady who became kind of like an angel to him, took him under her arms and started helping him out. And so basically what she would do was she would contact employers, negotiate deals, and let this guy work under the table. And she started having numerous gigs, which totally changed his life. Everything turned good for him. He was working back to back and making some really good money. And so barely a couple months in, he had saved enough money and decided to get for himself a ride to ease his movements. And so he went on to buy a very, very fancy used car, a Jeep, for $12,000. Remember, this was 20 years ago. So you can imagine how good of a vehicle that must have been at the time. And so came the moment to show his appreciation to this lady who had been helping him out all this while. And so he organized a little party, invited a couple of his friends and then the lady. And they all showed up, of course. And he went on to show them all his new ride and had all these fancy speeches where he basically thanked this lady. You know, he had all the good things in the world to say about the lady. He praised her, thanked her, and they all seemed happy, congratulated him, shared some food and drinks, and separated, of course, went home. But the twist in the plot will come barely hours later, as this guy explained to me that by 8 p.m. that same day, he received a message into his phone. A very, very simple, clear, and precise message, which simply read, from today onward, we shall be sharing in half, 50-50, the proceeds from whatever deal I negotiate on your behalf. This guy said he couldn't believe his eyes. For a split second, he thought he was dreaming. He was just confused, discombobulated to the core. And he tried to call the lady, but she wouldn't pick up. He was losing it, not being able to make sense of what was going on. And it was at this moment that one of his roommates reminded him of a mistake he had made. Now, it turns out that this lady herself, this lady in question, this lady who had been helping him out, wasn't quite a rich woman herself. She wasn't that wealthy. And in effect, drove a beat-down sedan from the 1980s. And so his roommate pointed out to him that him presenting this vehicle, this fancy Jeep of his, to this lady was clearly a mistake and must have done a few things on her mind. Now, I understand we may have different judgments with this lady. Some may think of her as being jealous, of not having acted appropriately or nicely or whatever. But when I heard the story, all I could think of was this law, this first law in Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. Do not outshine your master. And I think, given the details of the story, this is exactly what happened. He outshone his master, and that was a mistake he paid for dearly.